All right. I will call Randall County case cause number 86005 in the interest of the Oliveras child. We are here on an adversary hearing. Ms. Wildman's with us for the department. Ms. Wiggins is with us representing the child. Mr. Barfield is with us representing the mother, Miss Arona, who is with us. Mr. Oliveras, the father, is not in the waiting room. He's not with us. Mr. Saint is with us representing Mr. Oliveras. I've got Gary Hamilton, Karen Biter, and Tanner Howell in the waiting room.
And officers Howell and Hamilton are witnesses for this case, Judge.
Okay. Does anybody know who Karen Biter is? She's been in there a long time. I'm going to get her in so see what she's there for. I don't want her just having to hang out if she's not needed. Well, she's having trouble connecting to the audio. All right, I'll wait, see if she connects. Before we get started, Mr. Saint, you said you have a motion to make.
Yes, Judge. I only became aware of this appointment last week. There was, I think, some mix-up in the emails. My client is incarcerated, and I wasn't expecting to be here today because I had a criminal trial in a county that this morning it just last minute got reset. So I had already been planning to ask for a reset so that I can have my client here. I'll need to get the order for him to appear. He's in the Potter County Jail. And I was able to speak to him once briefly, and he seems opposed to what the department is asking.
All right. Does anybody object to the continuance?
We object, Your Honor, solely because I don't think we can do a continuance on this matter. We are at, I think, the end of our 28-day statutory deadline. So
that's not. But I showed it. We could have it next Monday.
I could be calculating it wrong, Judge.
TMC date was January 14th. I've got my handy dandy little wheel. 28 days to me looks like it's the. I can barely see it. It's either February 11th or 12th. We could have it next Monday, the 10th, on our regular Monday docket. So,
and Judge,
Your Honor, I think it runs from the actual removal date, which I think was a week prior to that.
Let me look.
And we could start and stop, Judge, and just put on some of the basic information through Mr. Flores, if that would work for Mr. Saint to get his client here on the next date.
Yeah, I think you're right. What was the removal date?
I believe it was the 9th, but let me double check.
Hey, let me look that up on my chart. Yeah, that wouldn't put us there. So I don't have a problem with starting and stopping. Let me just ask, more importantly, Mr. Barfield, do you or your client have a problem with us starting and then postponing it till next Monday?
I guess I need to ask my client that more than me.
You want back out in the breakout room?
I guess that would be fine, Judge.
Okay, I don't want you to have to talk.
I agree.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I just let you know I'd given Miss Forbes a heads up on this, and on the 10th I have a mediation in the morning, but I'm available in the afternoon.
Well, mediation doesn't take precedence over that. We probably have a full docket on Monday. We always do, so it's probably not a problem to set it as our last hearing.
Yeah, it would be at the end anyways.
Okay.
Thank you. All
right. I'll put y'all back in your waiting room. While we're waiting, Miss Wildman, were your two officers subpoenaed?
They were, Judge.
Okay. If I grant the continuance, we'll bring them in and I'll tell them they have to reappear, and then I'll tell them y'all will contact them.
Thank you, Judge.
While we're waiting for them to come back, if someone from St. Francis would get with this Miss Biden, she can't connect. Karen Biter. She's just floating around out there in La La Land waiting, trying to get on the audio. If someone could figure out who she is and why she's been in the waiting room all morning, I hate for her to waste her time.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, I'm back.
Okay, we're just waiting. Mr. Rona's still in the breakout room. So
yeah, Judge, while we're waiting for her to get back, we have no objection to what's been proposed. I will say that my client, I think I saw that there's been a visitation schedule already set up. She would like to have her visit this week for sure.
Okay.
And that's I don't want to say it's contingent on us agreeing, but she would like her visit this week.
Yeah, she should have her visit.
And I told her that. So yeah, we should be good with what's being proposed.
All right. While we're waiting for her to come back in, I'm going to go ahead and bring in these two officers and let them know.
And Judge, since we are being continued, I would ask that it be ordered or that the department work on getting the child into counseling. I think that's pretty important in this case. I did meet with him personally, and I think that would be really good for him, just to process through the transition. And I agree that he does want visitation with his mom, so I think we need to make that happen this week.
Okay. Let me see if they both came in. No, I haven't let them in yet. Let me get the witnesses in. All right. This is Judge Graham. I've let in Officers Hamilton and Officers Howell. If you would please unmute, please. Officers Howell and Hamilton, if you'd unmute, I need to visit with you briefly.
Yes, sir.
Let me get Officer Hamilton. Officer Hamilton, you're still muted. Okay, you're still muted. There we go. Can you hear me?
Sorry about that, Judge.
That's all right. Officers Howell and Hamilton, we're going to have to start this case and then recess it until next Monday. So your testimony won't be needed today. I didn't want you to just have to hang around for no reason. You'll still be under the subpoena, but someone will get with you and let you know what time next Monday. I believe it'll be afternoon, but I didn't want y'all to have to hang around for me to tell you that. So you're both free to go, and we'll see you. If we still need you next Monday, we'll see you next Monday. So thank you for being here, willing to testify, and thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I believe we can go ahead. Ms. Wildman, if you want to call your worker and just put on a brief bit of testimony, then we will recess till next Monday.
Yes, Your Honor. The department would call Rudy Flores.
Okay. Mr. Flores, could you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Wildman.
And Mr. Flores, how are you currently employed?
I am an investigator with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
And are you familiar with the case involving a child by the name of Eden Hugo Olivares?
Yes, I am.
Who are the parents in this case?
The parents would be Victor Olivares, and then that would be father, and then mom is Yesenia Orona.
Now, when you first got involved in this case, what was the nature of the intake?
The intake had indicated that the father had a psychotic episode, is what was described as, that he had been taken to the behavioral health hospital, and we didn't understand how long. We at the time we didn't know how long he would be there. There was some indication that he had been driving into oncoming traffic, acting aggressively, and things of that nature.
And was the child present for as far as you're aware, all of those events?
Yes, the child was present during every one of those events.
Your Honor, is that sufficient for the court?
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Let me just say, does anybody else need to take anything up with Mr. Flores today?
No, sir.
No?
No,
Okay.
Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Flores, just for my records, do we know where what type of facility the child's at in either city or county?
Yes, Your Honor. The child is actually placed with paternal grandparents here in the area.
Okay. In Amarillo area?
In Bushland, yes.
Listen, okay. Mr. Barfield, as far as today, does your client have anyone she wants to home study on, or just you want to home study on herself? Or
On herself, Your Honor.
okay, we might as well get that started. Okay, then, as I stated, we're just going to recess this case based on Mr. Saint's request that he wants to try to have his client attend from Potter County Jail. So we will recess until next Monday. We'll reconvene on Monday, January 10th, 2025. We believe it'll be an afternoon, but parties can get with our office or go on the court's online docket a day or two before next Monday to see what time we'll reconvene this case. I will also order that Ms. Arona have her visit starting this week. And I will order that Eden begin counseling as soon as that can be arranged. And I will order a home study on Miss Arona, the mother. Okay, we will be in recess on this case. I'll be back at 11:30 to call another Randall County case. That's a status hearing on the Pope child. We will recess. Y'all have a good week.
Thank you, you as well.
Ms. Rona, contact my office so we can set a meeting.
Yes, sir.
I will call Randall County case cousin number 86005. This is a continuation of an adversary that began on February 3rd. We recessed so Mr. Saint could try to have his client in attendance, and I believe he probably is today. I have someone from the video arraignment, and that looks like that's going to be our guy. So for today's purposes, Ms. Wildman's with us for the department. Ms. Wiggins is with us representing the child. Mr. Barfield is with us representing the mother, Miss Arona, and she is with us. Mr. Saint is with us representing the father, Mr. Oliveris, and it appears that he is appearing by video he's waving his hand at us, so that's him. All right, that is all of the parties. Let me just go down the list of everyone in the waiting room. I have Sylvia Garcia, Tanner Howell, Tasia McIntyre, Rudy Flores, and Gary Hamilton.
Gary Hamilton, Tanner Howell, Sylvia Garcia, and Rudy Flores will be on this case, Judge.
They all need to come in?
Yes.
Okay, if you'll tell me again, tell me as I go down the list, name them again.
Officer Hamilton
Okay.
and Officer Howell.
Okay. Are they witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody object to them coming in? Do we want to wait and leave them in the waiting room until they're called?
Bring them in.
Excuse me.
Your Honor, I would invoke the rule.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put them back. We'll take them one at a time. Who's going to be your first witness?
Mr. Flores, we had started with and then stopped, so Mr. Flores could be the first witness, Judge.
Okay, I'll put Officer Howell back real quickly. We'll call him just as soon as we can. Mr. Howell, I'll put you back in the waiting room. Someone's invoked the rule, which means you can't be part of the hearing until you're called to testify. So I'll put you back. We'll get to you as quickly as we can.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Hamilton will also need to go back into the waiting room, Judge.
Okay, same with Officer Hamilton.
Yes, Judge. And then Sylvia Garcia will be testifying. She would be the caseworker, so I don't have a problem with her waiting to be called as well, Judge.
Well, is she your designated person?
I'm going to be honest. Procedurally, I'm not sure since we're still at an adversary. She will be the Francis worker.
I have the answer for you on that one. Sylvia's in training. She needs to be let in, but Tasia McIntyre is the primary worker on the case.
All right, we have any objections?
Apologies for interrupting.
Do we have any objections for Sylvia Garcia with St. Francis coming in?
Oh, no, Your Honor.
No objection.
And then if Tasia McIntyre can come in with her, Judge.
Well, you can only have one. Who's your designated worker for St. Francis? Let's just answer it that way.
If Ms. Kirksey's correct, then it would be Tasia McIntyre.
Okay, so we'll get her in. Now, Mr. Oliveris, you were trying to say something, I think.
Judge, bring whoever you need in, whoever you need for your proceeding.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm willing to work with whoever you're bringing in, Judge, so.
Okay, well, you, sir, you've got a lawyer, so your lawyer can he can speak for you, and if you're called to testify, then I'll listen to what you have to say then.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're back to Mr. Flores. We're continuing his testimony from the previous adversary. Is that correct?
Yes, Judge. Sorry, I didn't realize I didn't have my camera on.
Okay, let's get him in. All right, Mr. Flores, can you hear me? This is Judge Graham. I'm not sure he's connected to the audio yet. Okay, there he is. All right, Mr. Flores, this is Judge Graham. If you'd unmute.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. If you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and again, for the record, we're continuing this. This adversary began on February 3rd, and Mr. Flores gave some brief testimony then, so we're resuming his testimony. Ms. Wildman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And so, Mr. Flores, at the last hearing, I believe we ended where you had told us that the department got involved due to an intake involving domestic violence and some sort of behavioral or mental health incident that occurred while Eden was present. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And so after the department became aware of what was going on, were they able to locate Eden?
Yes, we were.
And where was Eden at that time?
Eden was with paternal grandparents.
Okay. And the paternal grandparents, were they, I guess at that point, able to take care of Eden?
Yes, they were.
And in fact, is that where he's placed today?
That is correct.
All right. So after the intake came in, did you attempt to make contact with Mr. Olivares?
Yes, I did.
And were you initially able to make contact with him?
My initial attempt was at the behavioral health hospital, and he was not present. No.
Okay. Where did he go after leaving the hospital?
I was advised that before he was able to complete any treatment, that he was transferred to the Potter County Detention Center.
And were you able to make contact with him there?
I was not able to make contact with him that day or the following due to his he was being confined and he wasn't allowed any visitors due to his behavior.
Okay. Now, before or while all this was going on, did you attempt to locate Eden's mother?
Yes, we did.
At that time, did you know where she was?
No, we did not know where she was. There was a belief she might be in Oklahoma.
Okay. Now, what efforts did you make to make contact with the mother?
We made phone calls. We looked through CPS history for additional phone numbers, and then we also received phone numbers from one of the contacts, which I believe might be her youngest son's father.
Okay. And just to clarify, the mother's name, that's Yesenia Arona, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And so, Miss Arona, did you leave voicemails?
Yes, the numbers that we had were actually working numbers, and I was able to either leave a voicemail or a text message.
But did she get back in touch with you?
She did eventually get in contact with me, yes.
When did she finally get back with you?
I believe I spoke with her the day after the removal, which would have been, I believe, the 10th.
Okay. So if the removal was, I guess, was that on the 8th or the 9th?
The removal was on the 9th of January.
Okay. Now, had DFPS recently been involved with the family prior to this incident?
Yes.
What were the circumstances behind that?
We had received a report. I'm going to say it was October of 2024 that we had just closed in December of 2024. And the allegation was that Miss Arona had been using methamphetamine and was alleged to be prostituting and living in hotels.
All right. And so what was sort of the purpose of the order to aid that the department sought?
When we were finally able to make contact with Miss Arona, she advised us that Eden, her child Eden, was with his father, Mr. Victor Olivares. When we tried to make contact with Victor, he was not allowing us any contact with Eden, and so we ended up needing an order to aid so that we can interview Eden and see the home.
Now, when you made contact with the family that time around, I mean, at what point did Eden go live with his father?
Eden went to live with his father during the case that was opened with Miss Orona. According to Mr. Olivares, Eden had been living with him since Miss Orona found out that our case had been opened.
Okay, so after she was aware the DFPS was investigating, it's your understanding she then had Eden go live with his father.
Correct.
Now, did after completing that order of aid, you said you guys closed that case?
Yes.
And was that still with Eden living with his father?
Yes.
Do you know if there was anything that had been, I guess, determined with Miss Orona, or was it determined that Eden was safe where he was at that time?
It was determined that the home that we made contact with was appropriate, and Eden did not make any outcry at the time.
Okay.
And as far as Miss Orona, she did provide a drug screen. She was given some classes to complete, and the case closed.
All right. Now, let's give me a minute. Let me kind of go back to, all right, so what kind of contact have you had with been able to have with Olivares since Eden came into care?
I only visited with Mr. Olivares following the removal. I believe on the second or third day, I was able to visit with him there at the jail.
Okay. And were you able to talk to him sort of about what was going on?
Yes, I was.
And did he indicate that he's willing to work services and cooperate with the department?
He did, yes.
Did he have any other concerns about Eden or bring up anything about the case at that time?
He did not mention any other concerns to me, no.
And what sort of contact now have you had with Miss Orona?
With Miss Orona, after following the removal, I did have contact with her. I had a courtesy worker go speak with her and provide her removal paperwork.
And Mr. Olivares is obviously in custody. Did you ask Miss Orona at any point to do any kind of drug screening or anything to follow up on the previous allegations and any current concerns?
I did ask her to provide a drug screen, and she did agree to do such.
Now, did you ask for a hair or a UA drug screen?
I asked for both drug screens.
And did she complete both?
She did not complete the hair follicle drug test for us. She did not complete the urinalysis test for us, but she did complete a urinalysis drug test for St. Francis.
Okay, and do you know when that was?
I do not have the date in front of me, but I could get that real quick. She completed the drug screen for the urinalysis on January 22nd, 2025.
And were the results of that drug screen actually filed on Friday of last week?
Yes.
And based on those drug screens, does the department have concerns about ongoing drug use?
Yes, she is positive. She was positive for marijuana.
Now, kind of going back.
Mr. Flores, let me ask you, you said that she did not do a UA or a hair strand for the department, did a UA for St. Francis. Are you saying she refused to do a hair strand for CPS?
No, Your Honor. There was some confusion whenever I had asked her. She had agreed to do the hair strand and the urinalysis. When the other agency asked her to drug screen, she misunderstood and only completed the urinalysis.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Wildman.
And so kind of going back to the time of removal, Mr. Flores, at the time, do you believe there was a danger to the physical health and safety of Eden under the circumstances that he was in at the time?
Yes, I do.
Was there no time consistent with those circumstances to have this adversary before the removal was necessary?
Correct.
And I mean, did you attempt to make reasonable efforts to avoid the removal?
Yes, we did.
Were you able to, keep the child in the father's custody at the time?
No, I was not.
And were you able to locate Miss Arona?
No, we were not.
Did the department have concerns about whether or not Miss Arona would be an appropriate placement?
Yes, we do.
Now, what sort of, I guess, reasonable efforts did you make to avoid the removal?
Well, we tried to get in touch with Mr. Olivares, and we were unable to. And then when we tried to reach out to Miss Orona to either assess her for safety or contact any other family members, we were unable to reach her.
And I mean, did you attempt to kind of avoid removal by locating them and seeing if they would have been appropriate?
Correct.
What about family-based safety services or some kind of a parent safety plan? Were those available options at the time?
With us being unable to get in touch with either one of the parents, we were not able to discuss the family-based safety services due to them being voluntary programs.
Okay. And so, were there any other efforts that you believe you could have reasonably taken to avoid removal?
No, what was considered was the fact that Mr. Olivares was having a mental health episode and he was not receiving treatment, and we were unable to contact Ms. Orona, and there would be nothing in place to prevent Mr. Olivares to take Eden with him if he were to get out, that we did not know when he would be getting out.
As far as placing with Miss Orona, do you have concerns about the safety of Eden if that were to happen?
We do.
And why is that?
Ms. Orona has a history of avoiding contact with the department for us to be able to assess safety whenever we receive any concerns.
Have there been previous cases where she has been unsuccessful in reunification?
There has been.
And does that give you concern for Eden at this time as well?
Yes, it does.
What is the department asking at this time?
The department is asking to retain temporary managing conservatorship of Eden.
And do you believe that that would be in his best interest and that there's an urgent need to protect the child?
Yes, we do.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Barfield. You're muted.
There we go. Mr. Flores, currently, did you learn where Miss Arona is currently residing?
Yes.
And where is that?
She is residing, to my knowledge, she is residing in Terrell, Texas.
Okay. And before we recess the last hearing, were you able to make contact with Miss Arona on the 10th, the day after removal? Is that what you testified to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that when you learned she lived in Terrell, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. And did you learn whom she lives with?
I was able to read that in the documentation for the courtesy worker. It's my understanding she's residing with the paternal grandparents of her youngest child.
Okay. All right. Now, you'd mentioned a prior case that gave you concern regarding current placement of Eden. That case was closed?
Correct.
Okay. And were there any sanctions put on Miss Arona or any court orders stating she could not be around Eden?
No, there's not.
Okay. So it sounds to me like that situation was resolved.
Correct.
Is that correct?
The investigation was completed, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, was Eden part of that investigation?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Now, ultimately, you understand Miss Arona has asked for placement of Eden with her as part of these police proceedings. Was that your understanding, or did you know that?
It's my understanding, just based off of the when we met the last time, that she did ask for a home study to be completed.
Okay. Do you know, do you know if that paperwork's been done, if that's in the process or not?
I believe it is in the process.
Okay. Did Miss Arona, I believe also when we recessed, the court said Miss Arona could have a visit in between the gap. Do you know if she was provided the opportunity to have a visit?
I do not know if that visit has been completed, no, sir.
Okay. Well, if I told you as of Friday, there's been nothing done to allow her to have a visit with her child, would that surprise you?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Now, other than the fact that Miss Arona had previous involvement with the department, would you consider her a non-offending parent in regards to the reason for removal, given the factual circumstances of this removal?
I would not consider a non-offending parent in this case, simply for the reason that in speaking with Ms. Arona, she did admit that she has knowledge of Mr. Olivares having his mental health history. She has knowledge of him not taking his medication, and that she voluntarily placed him with Mr. Olivares in the last case because she was trying to avoid us.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The department was involved in the case, the previous case, correct?
Yes.
And did the department approve the placement?
The placement, which placement?
With Mr. Olivares?
No, they took that upon themselves to Ms. Arona. It's my understanding that Ms. Arona placed Eden with Mr. Olivares.
Okay. And then the department closed the case out.
Correct. At the time, we did not have any concerns with or any knowledge of Mr. Olivares' mental health or conditions.
Okay. So you want to blame Miss Arona for y'all agreeing to place the child in that setting, is that right?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained. That's not the way I heard it anyway.
All right. Well, what culpability does the department have for placing this child with Mr. Olivares?
I'm going to object to argumentative again.
I don't think that's argumentative, Judge. It's a fact.
I didn't hear the fact that they placed him. That Mr. Flores, was the previous case, was it a removal?
No, Your Honor, the previous case was not a removal.
So mom could place the child whoever she wanted to place the child with, and if the department thought that was unsafe, they would have had to file for removal. Is that correct?
Let me withdraw the question and ask another question.
Okay.
I'll ask you actually asked the proper question, Judge.
Well, thank you. I appreciate knowing that.
Thanks. Did the department feel there was a necessity for removal in the prior case?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll pass this witness, Judge.
All right. Mr. Flores, you may not know the answer to this, but I had ordered a home study begin on Miss Arona when we were here last week on the 3rd. Did you say, is it in the works?
I said I believe it is in the works. It being a subsequent placement, that would be St. Francis' responsibility.
That's
to
kind of what I thought.
Complete that.
At any rate, I've heard testimony that she's living with other family members. Would it be important that home study be completed so we'd know who Eden would be with besides his mother?
Yes, it would.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Saint, questions?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Flores, you said you spoke to Mr. Olivares?
Yes, a few days following the removal.
Okay, and did he indicate did he provide any names of possible placements?
He provided me his parents as a placement option.
And have you looked into them?
That is where Eden is actually currently placed. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Paternal grandparents. Okay. And he seemed okay with that?
Yes.
Did you explain to him the TMC and how that works?
Yes, I did.
He understood that the children would be in the care of the department, but placed with his parents?
Yes, he did.
And he indicated he was okay with that?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And have you had a chance to speak to him since then?
I have not.
And you stated, I think before, that you explained to him about the services and he was in favor of working services?
Yes, he said that he would be willing to do what was needed.
Okay, and he didn't express any,
Mr. Saint, I'm having a real hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, Judge. You know what? It's probably got me on the wrong microphone again. Sorry about that, Judge. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Flores?
Yes, I can.
So he didn't have any objection to the child being in the department's care and placed with his parents?
Correct. Not when he spoke with me, no.
Okay, and are there any plans to move the child from his parents at this time?
At this time, I am not aware of any plans.
Okay, so the placement seems to be going well?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins.
Mr. Flores, last hearing, we discussed Eden getting some counseling. Has that been started, or is that a St. Francis question?
That would also be a St. Francis question.
Okay. All right, thanks. Nothing further, Judge.
Okay. Anyone have follow-ups for Mr. Flores?
Just very briefly, Judge.
Okay.
Mr. Flores, I think to kind of clarify the case that was pending in October, I mean, was the case closed in part because Eden was no longer with Yesenia Arona?
Yes, that is correct.
Had he remained with her, would that case have been able to be closed at that time?
It's difficult to answer that question.
So it may have continued because of her involvement.
Correct.
I'll pass the witness.
Anyone else? All right, then. Ms. Wildman, does Mr. Flores need to remain with us?
He doesn't need to, Judge.
Hey, anyone object to letting Mr. Flores be released?
No objection.
Okay.
No objection.
Mr. Flores, I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Wildman, next witness.
Your Honor, just to kind of get them out of here and release them, I'd like to call the officers now. Briefly, if we could start with Mr. Hamilton or Officer Hamilton.
Okay. Officer Hamilton, this is Judge Graham. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you, please. If you'd raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wildman?
Officer Hamilton, where are you currently employed?
The Amarillo Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Amarillo Police Department?
30 years.
Are you familiar with a individual by the name of Victor Hugo Olivares?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And do you recall being called out to his home in, looks like January 8th of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
And so what were you called out on?
Actually, I received 2 calls on Victor on that day. The first one was at the Toot and Totem at 46th and Washington. That call went out as a domestic involving a Hispanic male, Hispanic female, and a white Impala. And basically, and I believe it was the clerk at Toot and Totems who called, said that the male was yelling and being aggressive towards the female. But by the time I got over there, they had left. I didn't realize till later on the second call that it was Victor and Angelica, his girlfriend, that had been at that Toot and Totem. The second call went out at his residence at 4308 South Tyler. That call came in from a neighbor who called and said, they basically described, the call said that the neighbor described it as the male subject. They believed he was having a psychotic episode and he was yelling and cussing out in his front yard.
So when you got out there, did you make contact with Victor?
Yeah, I did. What happened, I pulled up probably 2 houses down from his house, and I saw him out there in the yard, and he was digging some stuff out of that white Chevy Impala. That's when I realized this was probably the same people from the call that had happened at the Toot and Totem. And I was really just going to watch him for a minute and see what he was doing to kind of confirm what the neighbor was saying. But he saw me, and he immediately was coming towards me. And he didn't leave his yard, but he came to the farthest point of his yard, and he was yelling and cussing at me and basically challenging me to fight.
Were there other officers with you at that time?
No, not at that time. I did have a backup. Corporal Landrum was my assigned backup, and he hadn't arrived yet. I actually went ahead and walked up towards Victor, and I was trying to talk to him and try to figure out what was going on with him. And it was about that time that Corporal Landrum showed up.
Now, I mean, what was Victor's demeanor through this whole contact you had with him?
Well, he was extremely agitated, mad, aggressive. Again, like I said, he was calling me names, cussing at me, and basically just angry.
Now, based on what you had heard from talking with everybody on scene, did you have concerns about his mental health?
Yes, I did. What ended up happening is I saw a female, which ended up to be Angelica, his girlfriend.
Officer Hamilton, just generally based on the information that you had, was any kind of decision made to do an emergency detention?
Yes.
Now, did you find any kind of weapons or anything on scene while you were investigating?
Yes.
What kind of weapons did you find?
So I found two of them. One was a 38 special, a Taurus 38 special. That was actually Angelica had given it to me after I had secured Victor in a patrol car, and it was in a coat pocket in the Impala that they had been driving around in earlier. She said he had a second gun, and she and I searched the house, but we couldn't find it. And later on the 11th, she called me back and said she had found that pistol, and it was a Ruger 9mm. And I went up there and picked it up, and I took both of them and booked them at the police department.
All right. And so did your involvement with Victor that date end at the pavilion?
It did.
What happened when you got to the pavilion?
He continued to be escalate in his behavior. He was more and more agitated and kind of bizarre. He started making some off-the-wall profane sexual comments towards me and Corporal Landrum. At one point, he tried to bite Corporal Landrum and tried to look like maybe he was going to try to lick him. And we took him into a secured room, and the staff at the pavilion asked us to take the handcuffs off of him. We took the handcuffs off of him, and I had to help him down into a chair a couple of times. And then we ended up just backing out of the room and left him in the room. That's what they wanted to do. And then he began crashing into the glass divider between the two rooms, banging on it, yelling and cussing. And right about that point, the staff, I think they thought that maybe Corporal Landrum and I were why he was agitated, so we left at that point.
Now, do you recall a child being on scene?
I do.
And, I mean, did you identify him?
Yes, I did. That was Eden Hugo Olivares, 525 of 17.
I will pass the witness, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Barfield.
During your investigation, did you have any dealings with a Yesenia Arona?
No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Saint.
No questions, Judge.
All right, Ms. Wiggins.
How did the child appear at the scene?
Okay, so he was standing outside when I pulled up. He was in the driveway, and he basically just stood there. He didn't say anything, and he was just watching his father's interaction with us. And I don't think he spoke at all. And then once I secured Victor in the police car and I went into the house, well, then he became very talkative and was showing me his toys and showing me around the house. And he kind of seemed like he was definitely relieved that his father was being secured in the police car. He just, he seemed very comfortable with the girlfriend, Angelica. and was kind of just being like a normal kid at that point.
Did it seem like he was shocked by his father's behavior?
You know, I think it would be my opinion that he was scared at what he was seeing going on in the front yard between his father and I, and his father yelling and all that. And it did seem like once his father was in the car, that he was no longer scared and became talkative and wanted to talk about his toys and different things.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Anyone have further questions for Officer Hamilton? All right, then. Can he be excused?
No objection.
Okay, Officer Hamilton, I'll release this so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you, Judge.
Uh-huh.
And Your Honor, then the department would call Officer Howell, Tanner Howell.
Okay. Officer Howell, this is Judge Graham. If you'd unmute, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Wildman.
And just briefly, Officer Howell, how are you currently employed?
I'm a patrol officer with the Amarillo Police Department.
How long have you been with the police department?
4 years.
Now, are you familiar with an individual by the name of Victor Hugo Olivares?
I am.
And did you respond to a call at the Northwest Texas Behavioral Health Unit, also known as the Pavilion, on January 8th of 2025?
I did.
What was the, I guess, nature of that call?
Nursing staff had called and said that he was being aggressive, throwing things, screaming and yelling.
And so when you arrived, how did Mr. Olivares first appear when you saw him?
He was in his boxers, sweating profusely, screaming profanities and racial slurs. He's sweating profusely. He's very agitated.
And so, were you able to have any kind of conversation with him?
No. I tried, but anything that was said would just agitate him more.
And so, ultimately, I mean, were you let me take a step back. Were you the only officer on scene?
No, ma'am, not at that time.
Do you recall how many officers ended up having to respond to this?
There were 7 by the time he was taken into custody.
Now, while this was going on, did you become aware of anything that had been damaged?
Approximately $36,000 worth of electronics was destroyed.
And how did that happen?
Nursing staff, he said he had taken like a 5-gallon igloo cooler and poured it over the counter, destroying all their intake electrical items such as surge protectors, computers, things of that nature.
Once enough officers had arrived, I mean, what did you end up having to do to try to get him, I guess, contained or restrained?
Just the interaction we had with him, his animated state, we separated ourselves from him initially and called for more officers, and we came up with just a quick plan of, like, he's going to be arrested, Officer Kelly was going to give commands, and if he did anything other than comply, I was going to tase him.
And so, I mean, what ultimately ended up happening?
He was given several chances to comply, and he was hesitant to comply, and it resulted in me tasing him.
After that, were you able to get control of Mr. Olivares?
Yes.
And where did you take him to then?
Potter County Corrections Center.
Now, at the time, what was he booked in on?
Damage to property, over 25,000, under 30,000. Terroristic threat caused fear of serious bodily injury and resisting arrest.
Do you have any knowledge of whether or not those cases were taken or accepted? All right, but those were the ones that he was booked in for when you transported him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Officer, did you have any dealings with Yesenia Arona during this incident?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Thank you, sir. No further questions, Judge.
All right, Mr. Saint.
No questions, Judge.
Ms. Wiggins.
No questions.
Anyone else for Officer Howell? All right, then, Officer Howell, I'll go ahead and release you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Wildman.
The department would call Sylvia Garcia with St. Francis.
Okay.
Ms. Garcia, can you hear us?
I think she's still connecting to the audio.
Oh, is she?
All right, Ms. Garcia, this is Judge Graham. If you'd unmute, please.
Sorry.
All right, thank you, ma'am. If you would, please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wildman.
And Ms. Garcia, just really briefly, what is your part in the case involving Eden Olivares and his family?
I will be the permanency specialist at the end of February.
Okay, and so have you had the opportunity, are you working with Ms. McIntyre on this case currently?
Yes, I am.
All right, and so all the involvement you've had, have you been with Ms. McIntyre?
I have been with her and with a mentor.
Okay, so have you had an opportunity to talk to either of the parents in this case?
Yes, I have.
And have you talked with Mr. Olivares?
Yes, I have.
Have you talked with him about any concerns that he has about Yesenia Arona?
Yes, I have.
And what concerns has he relayed to you?
He said that he was concerned that she was still using drugs and that she would possibly be prostituting out of a hotel room.
Now, do you know specifically what drugs he was concerned about?
Methamphetamines.
Have you had any opportunity to talk with Miss Arona?
I've briefly talked to her, but not in regards to the drug use.
Okay. And so, are you aware of any other concerns that Mr. Olivares may have shared about Miss Arona?
He just stated that Miss Arona, whenever she would prostitute, that Eden would be there.
As far as he's concerned, does he believe that Miss Arona is a safe placement for Eden?
He does not believe that she is a safe place for Eden.
Does he believe that his parents are a safe place?
Yes, he does.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Right, Mr. Barfield?
Yes. Now, you mentioned that, yes, have you had conversation? You mentioned you'd had brief conversation with Miss Arona. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what was discussed during that conversation?
We discussed parenting time, and I made her aware that I would be taking over the case at the end of February.
Okay. And in regards to the court has ordered a home study of her home. Were you aware of that?
I was aware of it.
Okay. Do you know, I mean, and this is fairly soon, do you know the status of that?
We have yet to start it.
Okay. Do you have a time schedule into when you anticipate that being started?
We are actually planning to start it tomorrow, as soon as this hearing was to be completed.
Okay. Now, have you, and I probably know the answer to this, but have you had the opportunity to yourself to visit Miss Arona's home?
I have not.
And is that because that she lives in Terrell, Texas?
That is correct.
Okay. And is that the reason that we need a home study? Because one of the reasons we need a home study.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, in regards to Miss Arona, what plans have been made for her to have visitation?
So we've already had a visitation, and I let her know that after that visitation that I would actually reach out to her again so that we could have more of a set schedule of when that was going to happen weekly.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now, in regards to, now, is it your understanding that Miss Arona would like Eden placed with her as quickly as possible?
That is my understanding.
Okay. Now, has there been any drug testing done in this case, to your knowledge?
Yes, there has.
Okay, and I guess a better question would be, has Miss Arona drug tested in this case?
Yes, she has.
And what type of drug test was that?
It was a urinalysis.
And what were the results of that urinalysis, if you know?
It was positive for marijuana.
Was not positive for any other substance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Whereas was the test for substances as well other than marijuana?
Yes, there was.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Saint.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Garcia, you said you spoke with Mr. Olivares?
That's correct.
Okay. And did he seem to understand what was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that he was in favor of the children remaining with his parents, or the child remaining with his parents?
That's correct.
Okay. But he expressed concerns about the mother of the children?
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss the process with Mr. Olivares, the services, things like that?
Yes, it was discussed with him.
Okay. And he seemed to understand?
Yes.
And he seemed to be okay with working services?
Yes, he was okay with working services.
Okay. And obviously you can't place the child back with him while he's incarcerated, but did he give you any indication of how long he thinks he'll be incarcerated?
He did not give us an indication.
Did you discuss with him possible services that the St. Francis might be requesting?
We did not discuss that with him yet.
Okay. Obviously, there's been lots of testimony about mental health issues. I assume that's something that St. Francis intends to try to address.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wiggins.
At the last hearing, it was requested that Eden start counseling. Has that been set up for Eden?
Yes, it has been.
Okay. Who is he going to be seeing?
So I'm not sure yet who he's going to be seeing. We actually just have his psychological evaluation and his therapy set up for next week. So we have to see exactly which therapist he's going to use, because he's not in Amarillo directly. He's just on the outskirts of Amarillo.
Okay. I'll pass it on. Go ahead.
If I'm correct, it's going to be either Melissa Lawson. That's who we usually send and refer our kids to.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
All right. Anyone have further questions for Ms. Garcia?
No, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Ms. Wildman, any other witnesses?
Just very briefly, we'll call Tasia McIntyre, Your Honor, since she's the primary worker on the case and may be able to answer a few other questions.
Okay. Ms. McIntyre, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Wildman.
All right, and Ms. McIntyre, just you've heard that the home study on Miss Arona is planned to begin. Are there any other outstanding home studies?
We do have a home study requested on the paternal grandparents that he's currently placed with.
But do we have any concerns with their placement at this time?
No, and I've personally been out to that placement and reviewed it and stuff and met with the grandparents as well.
And have they done everything they need, getting him signed up for school and following up with the counseling requests?
Absolutely. I took a list of therapists out there and Grandma started calling right away, and we got him in with one of the therapists.
Now, understanding that we do have the home study being ordered on Mom, does St. Francis have concerns about the mother in this case?
Yes, we do.
And what are some of those concerns?
Past CPS history, substance abuse, and then also Dad's concerns that he raised to us as well.
And are you concerned about the fact that Mom dropped the child off with the father, knowing he had the issues that he had while another case was pending?
That does raise some concerns, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and let's see. Now, does that mean that if the department is granted temporary management conservatorship, that you're not going to work reunification with both parents?
No, absolutely. We want to work for reunification if we can.
And let me ask, as far as the visitation, is that going to continue virtually?
Yes, I actually requested it last week, and it's been assigned to a contractor, and they'll be giving Miss Arona a phone call. But we did do that visit last week, but it has already been assigned. After court, I did request those visits immediately.
All right. And since Miss Arona did not do a hair follicle, would it be helpful for everyone involved to have her ordered to do that hair follicle today? Or if there's an issue with getting her a referral down in Terrell, Texas, having the judge set a short time frame in which that can be arranged?
Absolutely. I've already sent her to one drug screen, so I know the exact testing facility she needs to go to and have no worries about getting that down there. So a hair follicle would be great.
Do you want that ordered for today?
Yes, please.
I will pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barfield.
Essentially, is it your position that until we get the home study and a clean drug test, that really if St. Francis's concerns will not be alleviated till we get some more information? Would that be a fair summary?
The proper measures need to be taken and then it brought before the court because there are some significant concerns.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any other questions, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Saint.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McIntyre, you said you've been to the grandparents' home yourself?
Yes, sir, I have.
And at this point, you have no concerns?
No, sir.
And is it your intention or expectation to leave Eden there with his grandparents until if and when reunification with the parents can happen?
Yes, unless ordered to do so differently by the courts.
Right. And if something came up that it caused a concern, that might change it. But
based on what you know now, you're expecting that would happen? Yes.
He would stay there?
Yes, he's safe. He's safe there and his needs are being taken care of.
Okay. Do you know, is that a possible long-term or permanent placement if it became necessary?
That's not been discussed, but grandparents are stepping up and doing what they need to do for their grandson.
Okay. And did he have a previous relationship with them?
He did not a strong extent. They did have holidays there, but not a strong involvement prior to this.
Okay. But it's gone well since he's been there.
There's been some hiccups, but there always is with the new placement, things like that, but it's been well.
But nothing that would concern you about him being there?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. And have you had a chance to speak to Mr. Olivares?
I have. I went to the jail to visit him.
Okay. And again, did he seem to understand what was the case was about?
He did. He communicated well with us, didn't give us any issues while we were there, and he discussed the case.
Okay. And you believe he needs some mental health assistance?
Yes.
You think that'll be a primary focus of his service plan?
Yes.
Okay. And what about visitation? I assume until he gets out of incarceration, that will be an issue.
As soon as he's released from incarceration, we'll get that set up immediately so that Eden can visit with his father.
Okay, that's what I was trying to ask. Thank you very much. I pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wiggins.
No questions.
All right. Anything further of Ms. McIntyre? All right,
No.
then, Ms. Wildman, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Barfield, any witnesses?
I'd call my client, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Rona, if you'd unmute, please. Thank you, ma'am. If you'd raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, Your Honor.
I can't hear. Can you not hear me, Ms. Arona?
Yes, sir, I can.
She's either frozen or she can't hear me.
I can hear her, Judge. I'll see if can you speak up, Miss Arona?
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Amy, can you hear?
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay, I don't either.
I don't hear her either.
I'm not on mute.
Ms. Rona, we can't hear you. It
That is
doesn't
odd.
show you're muted, but we cannot hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, now we can. Yeah, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you. Ms. Arona, are you asking that Eden be placed with you?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, when Eden was with Mr. Oliveris, did you know he was not taking his medications?
No.
How long had Eden been with Mr. Oliveris until this episode?
Since October.
And did you place Eden in his care?
He picked Eden up from my mother and my sister's house.
And when was that?
In October.
Did you take any legal action or any action in October or was the department involved with your family in October of 2024?
Yes.
At the end of the case, when it was closed in December, did Eden remain with Mr. Oliveris?
Yes.
Were you seeing Eden or getting any visits at that time?
No. Dad would not give me any.
Did you
Dad would be
did you retain any attorney or anything like that to try to get possession and access before this case started?
No.
Now, you understand that the court has ordered a home study of your home in this case.
Yes.
And the court, pretty much the department is asking for you to do a drug screen hair follicle test. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And are you willing to do that?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any, and it sounds like you got your visit.
Yes.
Now, if the court decided to leave placement where it was and name the department temporary managing conservator, is it your intent to cooperate with the department?
Yes.
Okay. But in a perfect world, you'd prefer that Eden be placed with you after this hearing?
Correct.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Wildman.
Mr. Rona, when you were in Amarillo, where were you last, or when were you last in Amarillo or living in Amarillo?
At a hotel I worked at.
And so was that back in October of 2024?
Yes.
During that case, the investigation that was open in October, did you leave Amarillo?
Yes.
And where did you go?
To Garland, Texas.
And is that where your other son's, is it Ciangelo?
Yes.
Is that where his father is?
Yes.
And do you recall telling the department that you intended to stay in Garland, Texas at that time?
Yes.
All right. And where do you live now?
In Carroll.
All right. So how long did you stay in Garland, Texas?
Until the beginning of January.
Excuse me, Mr. Rona, if you would not put your hand in front of your mouth, I think that's part of why we're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Wildman.
And so how long have you been in Terrell?
since the beginning of January.
So maybe a month?
Yes.
Who are you living with in Terrell?
My 3-year-old grandparents.
Didn't hear that.
My 3-year-old grandparents.
Amy, did you make that out? 3-year-old grandson? Nope.
His parents.
Her 3-year-old's grandparents.
Okay.
Okay. So is Ciangelo still with you?
Yes.
But he's also got his grandparents there to supervise.
Yes.
Did you do drug testing for St. Francis the department back in October?
Yes.
And were those drug tests also positive for marijuana?
Yes.
And did you, at any point after that investigation had closed, did you at any point make any effort to get Eden, I guess, back to Terrell or Garland or wherever you were living at the time?
Yes. Dad wouldn't. Dad was argumentative, so I just left him be. Try to contact his parents to try and get Eden for me. His parents didn't respond to me. And then I heard from you guys that he had been removed by you guys.
And at the time that you dropped Eden off, that case was still open against you, correct?
Yes, they had just opened.
So the last time that you had contact with Mr. Olivares, his understanding was that you were under investigation and not necessarily a safe placement for Eden. Correct?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Mr. Saint.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Arona, I think you testified that you were unaware that Mr. Olivares was off his medication when you sent Eden to be with him?
Correct.
Okay, so if he's on his medication, you believe that he would be a suitable caretaker for Eden?
No.
Okay, but you sent him anyway.
He was picked up by his father from my mother's house.
Okay, and you had nothing to do with that? I'm sorry if you answered, I didn't hear you.
No.
Okay, so he just showed up and picked up and you had no idea he was coming?
He asked my mother if he could pick him up. She allowed him.
Okay, and you didn't know about it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Wiggins.
No questions.
All right, anything further, Ms. Arona?
Just briefly, Judge.
Very, very briefly, please.
I will, Judge. So, Mr. Arona, I'm following up on what Mr. Saint had said. He came and got Eden in October, correct?
Correct.
So if you didn't think he was a safe person, why did you not bring that up with the department or St. Francis over the 2 months that investigation was open?
Because Eden was supposed to come back with me. He was supposed to take Eden to my mother's house.
So he was supposed to take Eden and then return him afterwards.
He was supposed to take him back to my mother's house. He stated to my mother and my sister that he would take Eden back to them on Christmas.
So once the case was over, you expected him to return Eden? Or once the investigation was over, you expected him to return Eden?
No, not when it was over.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You agree with me that investigation was over by Christmas, correct?
It was over by Christmas, yes. But he was supposed to go back before then.
But at no point in that 2 months did you bring up any of those concerns about Mr. Olivares then with the department before that case closed?
No.
No further questions.
Anyone else?
I have to follow up, Judge. Miss Arona, do you believe the department was aware of Mr. Oliveris's issues because of the case that was going on?
No.
No further questions, Judge.
Anyone else? All right, then, Mr. Barfield, you didn't have any other witnesses, correct?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Saint, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Wiggins, witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Wiggins, recommendations?
I recommend that the department remain temporary managing conservator of the child. Placement to continue. I did see him at his placement. He is doing well there with his grandparents. They are new in forming their bond, but they are doing very well. Hence why I wanted the counseling for him. And since Andy is awesome, she already found out that he's starting with Melissa Lawson on the 18th.
Great, great. Tasia, is Eden enrolled in school in Bushland?
He is and doing well in school.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, then I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator. I'll continue Eden's current placement. I will order Miss Arona to hair strand drug screen by 4 p.m. tomorrow at, I guess, if I'm correct, Tasia, at the same facility that she did the UA drug screen for you?
Yes, sir. And I just sent that request through, so it's ready for her.
Okay. Miss Arona, you know where you went before, correct? Miss Arona?
Correct. I'm sorry, you cut out. Correct.
You know where you went to take the drug test?
In Forney?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Did you understand my ruling
Yes,
that
sir.
I'm ordering that you hair strand drug screen by 4 p.m. tomorrow at that very same facility?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have transportation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then our next hearing will be the status hearing. That will be held on March 10th, 2025. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of March 10th to see what time we'll have that hearing. We'll stand in recess on this case. I'm going to take a quick break, 5 to 10 minute break, and then I'll be back to call another Randall County case. That's an adversary hearing on the Soria children. So we will be in recess. Everybody have a good week.
Thank you,
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.